guys, MrRoflWaffles here. Today we're going to be talking about a new Easter egg that has just been found on Alpha Omega by Oliverdtrue. I want to give a massive thank you to him for directly tweeting me and letting me know about this, because otherwise I just would have missed it. So it's a new egg involving the TV that you can find inside the yellow house. That thing has been suspicious since launch day. Everyone's been kind of wondering if there was more to it, and now it turns out that there is. So the way this egg works is if you go and activate the power, and then you turn on the generator, do the lockdown, go upstairs, do the vents, and finish activating Pack-a-Punch, that TV will become interactable. But it's so quiet and so hard to actually make out amongst the rest of the sound in the game world that it's gone kind of unnoticed, I think, until now. So if you get past Pack-a-Punch and you go over to it and hold square, here's some of the audio that you can hear. And the way it works, by the way, is that you'll hear one little quote on one round, and then the next round you'll hear another little quote, and then the next round another quote, etc. So it goes round on round with a couple of round breaks, it seems like, but for the most part, it's every round you get a new little bit of audio. So like I said, here's some of that audio for you to get a first taster. So clearly that's pretty damn hard to hear. The good news is that my Discord server and I have been working absolutely tirelessly to try and find these quotes for you guys in the sound files for the game. Now, to give you an idea of how big a task this is, there are over 10,000 sound files that need to be sorted in order for this to actually happen. And my team on Discord and I have already done between 5,000 and 6,000, I think, but we've still got quite a long way to go. So I don't have absolutely every single Avogadro quote for you today, but I do have another chunk of them that are in complete perfect quality straight from the files that we can have a listen to that would be playing from this TV. The one thing I want to say before I play them is that if you want to help out and get the community to a point where we have every single Avogadro quote, then jump in my Discord, it's linked down below. Jump in that main lounge and we can get to sorting, because there is still work to be done. It's going to take a community effort on this one, and especially if we want to go back and do Blood and Classified as well, it's just a lot to do, and we can't do it in the same way that we did in previous years, where the character quotes just were titled with the character name and we could sort them that way. It isn't that easy anymore. There's no file names, and so it's a lot more work. So anyway, on to the topic at hand, the quotes themselves.
Why do you try to escape your fate? Agatha will be mine. Why do you fight the inevitable? The prophecy must be fulfilled.
So the first couple of these aren't massively consequential, but the last one fills my mind with so many ideas for what could actually be happening here. It really expands the way that we view the Avogadro, and specifically his kind of enthusiasm for the MPD, or for Ether rather, or Agatha even. I guess enthusiasm's maybe the wrong word. Deep obsession, crippling fantasy, something like that. That might be more fitting for him. Basically, we know that Purnell, Cornelius Purnell, Peter McCain's handler from back in the day, got completely corrupted by the Dark Ether and by 115 and became hell-bent on reaching Agatha. And now he has this prophecy. There are a few kind of routes that I want to explore for what the prophecy itself could be and why he even knows of it in the first place. The basic backstory with Purnell, and this is important for why he gets to this prophecy in the first place, is that he is Groom Lake's station chief. He's making a load of radio recordings, which we find in classified from 1961, 1963, those kind of years. There's a development with Dr. Schuster, who tells him about Samantha being a huge threat, and that kind of tempts Purnell to go and research things himself. And he convinces Secretary of Defense McNamara to basically create the Broken Arrow program. However, Purnell by this point has been sitting in the same room as 115 in storage and just gazing at it for a little bit too long, and he goes a little bit loopy and ends up saying things like, all those hawks, the US guys, think about is war. I offered them a morsel, a nugget, and had them eating out of the palm of my hand. Yeah, well, good riddance. They'll get their war, I'll get my riches. They want to destroy Samantha. It's narrow-minded. Why destroy her when we can take her power and harness it for ourselves? With the amount of Element 115 buried down here, just imagine what we could do. We could mold the Earth anew, create it in our image. Here's a toast to Broken Arrow and to opening new worlds. So that is very much the premise on which Broken Arrow is founded in the first place, with this guy who's bonkers. So we get that info in classified, and then in Alpha Omega, we hear that Purnell has really gone off the deep end, and he has become fixated on actually ascending himself personally and reaching Agartha. Now it's interesting because this follows the same deep obsession that you see with three main things in zombies. Number one, Samantha. Kind of. Samantha is kind of a 50-50 case, because what Samantha experienced was she went to the MPD, she entered the MPD, she basically entered Agartha as well. I mean, we see her reaching out from Agartha in Origins, for example, right? We know that she experiences that terrible kind of fate when Maxis draws her in there, so she, as a character, corrupted basically a little bit by the Dark Ether, has a history very much intertwined with Agartha. A better example is Ultimus Richtofen. Ultimus Richtofen touches the MPD, becomes corrupted by the Dark Ether, starts hearing all these voices in his head, and he becomes hell-bent on controlling the zombies and reaching Agartha via entry back into the MPD, and that's what we see in Moon. The third thing, did I say three? The third one on the list is the biggest one of them all. The APOTHICONS themselves. They start off on a level playing field with the Keepers because they are Keepers, but then they become corrupted by the Dark Ether. They end up fighting the War of Agartha, which I made a whole video about. It's linked in the description down below, and I'll have the thumbnail on screen right now so you can click it if you see it on your recommended. They get banished basically beneath creation, and their lifelong goal from that point forth is to get back to and overtake Agartha. So this is something that happens all the time. And we learn a little bit in Alpha Omega about what the actual relationship is between Agartha and Ether, and how one is a manifestation of the other in a physical kind of way, and all that sort of stuff. Maxis tells us a lot about that. But the key here is that Purnell has the same thing happen to him. That story is mirrored. He sees the MPD on the moon. They get their schematics for their APD basically from that MPD that they discover there in the 60s. He learns about Richtofen's research and Maxis's research as well, and he uses that in conjunction with what he's learned about this MPD, and that is all mixed in with his obsession with 115 that he's developed over the years being Groom Lake Station Chief. And that basically sets him on the exact same path as Ultimus Richtofen. The difference here is that, and actually Purnell taunts Richtofen for this in the map, which again, if we manage to make a full quotes video, I'll be able to show you guys, but he taunts Richtofen about the fact that Richtofen never made it. Richtofen didn't ascend in the way that Purnell is going to, or that kinda already has. And he's like, Richtofen, you're a joke. You were scared. And here I am, and I'm actually going and doing it. It's really, they're great quotes, and it's super cool that he has this kind of mystique around him of feeling like he's almost on this like religious journey. Like he is hell-bent no matter what on reaching his own kind of weird twisted version of enlightenment. And so that brings me to the prophecy again. There have been quite a few prophecies over the years in zombies, and quite often they actually manifest in the form of ciphers. And interestingly, in the setup to Black Ops 4, when we were getting the Zombies comics, and Treyarch was laying all the groundwork for Broken Arrow, I mean, we literally visited Broken Arrow in the comic, and the setup for the Victis crew, and the Crenorium being secured, and the Blood Vials, and everything there, we also got a load of ciphers that were very prophecy-like. The first Zombies comic has 3 ciphers. Primus will fail, the Keepers shall rise once more, and its knowledge is a curse. The second Zombies comic has 3 more. Shadows are gathering, a great evil will be unleashed. Events long foretold will soon come to pass, and beware those who would use the truth only to deceive. The third Zombies comic, wisdom means little to the unwise. There are many histories, many futures, only one can prevail. Mbup, kave, eisw, voag. Yeah, that one's not solved yet. The fourth Zombies comic, the innocent must be protected. On the final day, the soulless one will be erased. Only their sacrifice will restore order. The fifth Zombies comic, the voices of darkness and light will call out across time and space. The man-fool seeks redemption, he will not find it. The agents of chaos must be controlled. And then the final Zombies comic, the great deceiver will make himself known. His lies will doom you all. The cycle begins. Those all sound pretty ominous, right? But the question is, which of these would be related to Purnell, and which of these would be related more to Monty or the Shadow Man? Things like, beware those who would use the truth only to deceive, that sounds like a Shadow Man quote to me, because what he's basically saying is that Monty is deceiving the characters by telling them the truth, but when the truth is kind of a lie in a weird way here, that's just the way it works in zombies, again, reference to that video down below that I linked before, then that quote seems extremely accurate. The premise will fail quote is a little bit more similar, except I still don't know if that's the sort of thing that Purnell would say. Would he really say, the prophecy must be fulfilled, premise will fail, and so you should come down here and I'll be the ones that will kill you? Like, I don't think that if Purnell was making that kind of statement, he would think that he would be the one to make premise fail. I think that he would already be knowledgeable of the fact that premise are going to fail in the next map, and that's where ultimates are going to come in handy. This idea of Purnell knowing what's going to happen and knowing that he isn't the end of premise is something we'll come back to in a second. And that brings me on to another prophecy we've seen from Samantha in Classified, where she writes on the walls, or presumably she writes on the walls, the world will burn and they will be to blame. Salvation only comes once Agatha burns, which sounds extremely relevant to the cutscene that we get at the end of Alpha Omega. Samantha also says, the ether is not for us, Ultimus will prevail, Teddy dies. This stuff's all interesting, but again, does it get us any closer to knowing which of those prophecies I mentioned before would be the one that we would attribute to Purnell? Well, I think that they at least help us get an idea of what prophetic characters in zombies are able to prophesize about. So Samantha, for example, has been touched by the Dark Ether, and we know that for her, according to Yuri, time is basically flat. It's something that she sees all of at once at the same time, and it's all the same to her. And so she can see the past and the future and talk about it basically fairly freely, as she is doing in these little kind of riddles that she's putting on the walls of Classified. So this is where it all comes together. If prophetic characters like Samantha, who share similarities with Purnell, are able to make prophecies like the ciphers I've just described to you about zombies, the universe, how it's all going to end, and things like that, does that mean if Purnell also himself has his own prophecy that he knows how DLC4 is going to end, who's going to end up dying, who's going to end up living, and also what his own part to play in it will be? He, of course, makes it very clear when we're forcing him into the APD that he doesn't want to go in the APD, he doesn't want to be trapped, he wants to wreak havoc on our characters, and he has these delusions of being all-powerful and molding the earth anew, etc. But somewhere in his head, do you think there's a chance that the Dark Ether has given him the gift of truth and the gift of foresight, where he actually does know how things are going to wrap up? I mean, it happened to Samantha, but Purnell isn't quite as powerful as Samantha, and so maybe what's happening here is Purnell's been gifted this knowledge, but he's not strong enough to really come to terms with it, and so he's here saying, the prophecy must be fulfilled, I know how this is going to end, I know in the back of my mind that if you free me from the APD, it's just going to be another piece of the puzzle in the Chronorium to get towards DLC4, but even so, I'm going to fight against it and use all my free will possible to try and battle against fate and against destiny just because I'm selfish in that way. Maybe. Either way, I think that what we've got to kind of grapple with here is the fact that Purnell is a much more interesting character in zombies now than we originally might have first thought. And he has a lot more knowledge of the universe, the multiverse, and time than we necessarily currently understand. Another thing that he says is I know your faces, you have returned to me, but as far as we know in zombies, that isn't the case. We haven't seen Purnell before. In fact, this is the first time we've ever been in the same place as Purnell with these characters. The Victis crew, yes, they saw Purnell in transit. That was a long time ago, but it was different characters. So the fact that he's now recognizing our faces and he's saying there's a prophecy that must be fulfilled seems very ominous to me. So let me know, guys, in the comments down below. What do you think Purnell is referencing here? I'm absolutely going to dig more into Purnell as a character and do a whole video on it for you guys because I think that it's overdue at this point. Let me know what you think of all this. And also check out some of those videos I linked on screen and in the description down below. Cool video, man. Thanks, Oliver, for letting me know. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.